So the first question that I want to ask you, Michael, because this is one of my favorites, and I think I've said that to him before, because you're a rascal, and I know you in real life, so I know that you're just like that all of the time. So the first question is was it a far stretch for you? And more importantly, maybe I'm hearing this wrong, but there's a dialect change of sorts, meaning that you almost sound like you coined a particular accent for this.
No, I don't remember that. Mainly, I recall the hat, the derby, which I still have, and so I'm wearing this one today. You always try to pull for a little swag for yourself on a production, and I said, what are they going to do with it? These 20-something-year-old filmmakers, the hat is best to stay with me.
Oh, sure.
I'm a hat wearer. So, but the dialect, no. It was just a sort of that smooth villainous lingo. You just sort of speak precisely and slowly, and I imagine the devil would have good diction. So you just sort of ease it up a little bit and enjoy stirring the soup and luring him in and watching him entrap himself and try to outsmart the devil, which most of us can't do successfully.
Now, when I was watching you, I know that I'm sure anybody that watches this movie, first of all, the first question I have is, you literally get right into his face like that. So how do you film like that? Because I can imagine, I'm not a full-time actor, but being in somebody's space like that's got to be like, what are you going to film it 75 times? Probably not. So how do you orchestrate that in such a way where none of the actors are like, fed up, done, I'm over it? Because that's like right there.
Well, and yeah, if you're easily fed up in your little business, the repetition alone with filmmaking, or at least you should stick to theater if you don't like repetition. But yeah, it's weird. People who don't do TV or film acting don't realize the proximity issue, which is something that looks like right now you're almost sitting in my lap, and it looks fine on camera here. But so oftentimes you're really in somebody's space, and it's all about how it looks on camera, and not about awkwardness. That's why good oral hygiene is sort of important, and nobody wants to know what you had for lunch. And things like that. So yeah, there's times where we're close enough to smooch, and you do that. We're shooting on film, by the way, so luckily we didn't have to do 20 takes like everybody wants to do on video nowadays. They shot on, I think it was Super 16. It might have been straight up 16, but I think that was one of the last true blue film projects I did for a while, and then everything seemed to switch over to video for a good while. Until last year, I finally shot an Ultra 16 feature film, which was nice. Not to belabor that, but it's a very different dynamic shooting on film. Everybody's heard the comparisons to death, but shooting on film is really something special. We're in a nice little controlled studio space there. So, we could have been at the top of Mount Kilimanjaro or something. We're very isolated, and just to ourselves for the entire shoot. It was one long outing until I think 2 in the morning or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
So we just had to nail it all in one swoop. But it's a shorty, so we knew exactly what we needed to do and how long we had to go, and everybody just hung in there very nicely.
Now, when I looked at the tell me a bit about the look itself, because I can imagine, because I know you, I'm guessing that you contributed to that look, or was that all the director really saying, this is how I think the devil should look?
It was mostly his vision. The sort of half tuxedo look. And then we talked about it, what kind of a hat. He was really thinking of a top hat, and which is a little too Fred Astaire, I suggested. So I'm the one that kind of swayed it towards, let's have a little more roguish. Let's go derby, And so we wound up, and that's the good thing about New York City, is you can just pick up and go to a hat store and get a proper hat, not a costume shop hat, and just get exactly what you want. A nice, proper felt derby, which will last you forever. So that was my contribution to that. But it was mainly his vision, that sort of smoothness, and which coming from I think at the time he was 21, Anthony Padgett, the director. It was a cool imagery, because that's sort of my style. So we really we're simpatico on that, on how to play this character.
Now, because of course you're a little bit older when you do this production and you're working with someone who's younger than you are, obviously. Tell me a bit about something that you were able to, did you have a great camaraderie on set? Obviously, because when they're younger, some people need to be molded a little bit. Were you kind of instrumental in helping them on set anyway?
Yeah, I guess I was the old hand, the veteran on that set. At the time, I was probably, almost double everybody's age. But they were just a cool bunch of guys, so it was very agreeable. As usual, it was the same in any other production. Everybody's just courteous. And everybody likes input. You have to have a certain respect for the director. And he was a smart fellow, so he knew what he wanted. He wasn't like, gee, Mike, what do I do? He was a trained filmmaker. He knew what he was doing, knew what he wanted. But so it was, sometimes you just wait if your suggestions are valid and you have some input. Other times, no. If it's not necessary, let him conduct his orchestra his own way. It's not for me to try to overly influence or take over. If I have something to say, whether I'm the lead actor or if I'm an extra on set, sometimes anybody can have a good suggestion. If you don't, then stay out of the way and just be prepared for what you have to do in the next shot.
Now, I don't know if you can speak to this or not, but we all can see that it was shot in black and white. Was this his original vision? And would this have come across maybe a little bit better in color? Because it's a bit hard to see some of the visuals going on.
Yeah, the palette is very muted, and the so-called studio that we shot in, it was a proper studio in the traditional sense, but it was really just minimalistic and just very, like I said, muted. There's not a lot going on there, so I never really thought of it too much as a color project, but. And, Bedford Falls, that's sort of the purpose of it is black and white cinema. I'd be very curious what a little splash of color would do for this. Or maybe those outtake scenes, on the beach and all that, the imaginary scenes, maybe that would be good for moments of color, a little splash of that. It was always envisioned as a black and white project, and I always just saw it as black and white from its conception. So we'll never know. We will not, unless we can get when they're done colorizing all the movies from the 40s and whatnot. Maybe they'll get to this someday.
Now, what drew you to this particular role? Because I have seen your body of work, and I know why you'd be attracted to this, but tell your audience, what is it about this that intrigued you enough to say, I'll invest in this?
Well, everybody wants to play the Prince of Darkness at some point. Fear him, respect him, but everybody wants to be him, at least just a little bit. And, coming across Al Pacino's famous rendition, you just said, yeah, let's do something like that. It's just, it's the ultimate bad guy. It's right. I guess maybe Iago would be my ultimate simply because of the writing. But this was a very cool little project where you can really just have some fun with it, play and enjoy the absurdity of it.
Even though he was charming, because he wasn't really deadly or just really that evil. You're more charming and nice looking and more of a stylish sort of devil.
Sure. Well, Well, what did Al say? I'm a fan of man. I care about his needs, and I never judged him. I know the movie a little too well. But temptation has a pretty face to it. It's not, pitchforks and cloven hoofs. That would be too easy. Of course, it seems fair and reasonable, and I like that. And you want to do it, otherwise it wouldn't be tempting. So the devil, of course, is going to be your pal. It's going to, give you a little pat on the back when no one else will, and lure you in. And it helps when your subject is a bit of an agnostic, nihilist, perhaps. And the filmmakers were in that. They're in they're constantly talking about I think they're in their Nietzsche phase. Heavily into philosophy. So they had a very nice kind of simplified philosophical message to it, which is nice. It didn't get overly burdensome or preachy, but they had things to say. and they made it into a nice little story rather than make it an extension of their college curriculum.
Now, of course, because we're all about shameless promotion, which I say on every platform, believe it or not, Michael's not just an actor. But before I ask you what else you do, I do want to make mention of this. Last I had heard, as I understand it, this particular movie and 6 others are going to be distributed across multiple platforms, so people can actually see this work outside of the festival. Is that correct? Or should I say your work?
That is the rumor.
Aha. Now, rumor on the street is also that besides this film festival, apparently you do things like photography and cinematography and sometimes write. Would that be right?
Yeah, and like your neighbor over there, I like to ride my bike on occasion, which I gotta get running. Gotta spend a little time with the wrench when we're not doing the festival any longer. Yeah, you know, it's like anything. The more interests, artistic and otherwise, they sort of feed off of each other. But really enjoy, especially the photography. You can do it anywhere, no matter where you go. Mainly portraits and people. You know, that's what sort of gets me going. Just that splash of character, personality, and soul that a great photograph can capture more than an hour of video. Just that one little moment that will never be seen again. If you capture it with your camera, there it is, worth its weight.
So then, am I allowed to ask you to give us a little tidbit about what you're currently working on, actor-wise?
Let's see. I have a movie in the can called. It is imminently about due for release, called The Monster Mash, where I play. Speaking of evil, I play. Is it 3 or I think it's 3 roles. Yeah, one is there are different versions of worse, if that's properly put. Lots of evil, from a Nazi doctor to a Native American paraplegic drug dealer. Yeah, that was a lot of creative back and forth, fomenting that character. And the other was just a straight up serial killer, another smooth talker.
Bad guy, really bad guy.
But I'm really looking forward to that. That is really a tribute to the old drive-in creature feature type classics that you know, we grew up with. So very creative, all practical effects and smart, not over the top slasher type stuff, which is not my thing. It's really character driven type horror, which to me is really the most stirring and disturbing genre of horror, where you really get to know the people involved, care about them, and see, you know, you learn something about the inner workings of the evil mind. So there's going to be plenty of that coming up. And
I hear you're shooting something next week.
Yes, I am. I'm with Russell Manuel. It is I don't want to say it's virus related, because I really don't like to do anything virus related. I guess it's got a virus inspiration, but it really is a sort of a zombie horror comedy. And I play a fellow who is desperately searching for the cure. He's got the zombie bug, let's call it, but he is not zombified yet. So he's desperately trying to figure out what sort of, you know, from herbal remedies to meditation or whatever the heck we're figuring out where to go. But he's trying to figure out something before he starts falling apart and decaying on the spot.
See what I mean? Somebody needs to give him a comedy, for the love of God. Oh wait, I did that. So primarily, if people want to reach out to you, or if they want to see some of your work, where would they go? And also, of course, when do we have we have no timeline yet for either Monster Mash or Staycation yet? Is that right?
Well, Staycation we're still shooting that.
Got it.
I haven't shot a frame of that yet. Monster Mash is in the final stages of editing. Of course, the most technical special effects kind of guy is got his hands on it now. So, you know, they're the ones that take the longest, because they got all the bells and whistles to it. So it should be. He's got some very, very fellow by the name of Kenny Lasani. He's got. He does everything from music videos to his own off-the-wall action films and whatnot. So he's adding a really unique spin to his part of the film. So it'll be worth the wait. We're thinking end of August, early September. We should be ready to start hitting the festival circuit.
Okay, I've got you as far as that goes. And then, of course, if you wish to read some of his writing, we all know that he contributed to and continues to the Artists Alive magazine. How do people find your work on social media or other?
michaelgentile.net is the one-stop shop. I've got everything linked, social media and otherwise, it's all there. Michael, MICHAELGENTILE.net.
If you want to go to Amazon, is it where you can see that wonderful production of my favorite, the ultimate sexy bad guy, and I get to say that because I am me, but yes.
Well, why be a mobster if you can't have that defect on the dames?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's on there. Pickings, excuse me, Pickings. That's right. That is a nice neo-noir film where I shake down a nightclub or two in that. Cigarette Soup is on there, a couple of others. It's all linked at the website. So
and the distribution companies will be on the website as well, as a matter of fact. And then I heard another rumor the other day. I understand that you did a 6-part television series. And what's the status of that?
Sonny and Trixie. Well, that is in the can, as they say. They're currently evaluating whether there needs to be a pickup shot or two. You got to get just the right editing because, as you know, timing is everything with comedy. So it's got to get just the right flavor. That is also going to be black and white, a real throwback kind of a comedic Ralph and Alice type of thing. So really looking forward to that. That should be a good bit of fun.
And what was the best part of filming that, I wonder?
Well, you know, the co-star was she was all right.
Yes, that was a wonderful experience.
Just the right amount of moxie. Kind of.
The last thing I want to end it before I forget about it, or to mention this, is I did hear another rumor, which is word on the street is that there is this play that has been written called Nick the Monster and the Man Upstairs. So tell people a little bit about that, and if you are actually going to take on that project before the end of the year.
Well, there's talks about it. We're talking about starting in the regions, starting in Wisconsin would be nice to kind of workshop it, get a local cast, except for myself, take it, depending on how things go with the lockdown, the impending lockdowns and all that. We might take it down to Florida, might take it to Vegas, before heading to New York, which seems determined to lock down all over again. So that's certainly not conducive to live theater. We'll see where things lie, but the important thing is to get it on its feet, and to fine tune it, make your mistakes early, and then just have a sharp piece to take to at or near the Great White Way.
Now, before I forget, can you tell everybody just a little bit about the story of the Nick the Monster and the Man Upstairs?
Well, it's I guess you'd call it similar to The Devil Knows What, which we just saw. It's sort of a existential comedy, and it's involving a mobster, is a traditional Irish Catholic priest,
which is played by originally.
It's played by the hip priest,
who is Gerard McManus. If you guys don't know Gerard, you should look him up. Beautiful film called The Hip Priest. So I literally stole The Hip Priest. Momo, if you watch Pickings, and then The Man Upstairs I wrote, which is basically obviously God, and that's as a tribute to a dear friend of mine by the name of Alan, who is no longer with us. And so I recreated him in a fashion. And so our hope is to bounce around. I'd love to be able to do Broadway, but at this point you don't know. So New York, Wisconsin, Las Vegas, wherever I could get it as far as that goes. But yes, and then at some given point in time, I'm going to turn him into either Dracula or Charlie Chaplin or both. I think he would make for a terrific Chaplin. So thank you for all of those wonderful answers. And of course, look out for all these various distribution channels to be able to see that movie as well as all the others. The other thing that I should mention to the audience before I go, because after we finish this, we're going to take about a 10-minute break. I'm going to set up in a new location inside of the house that looks a little bit different for the second part of the show today. This is what I will say. Oftentimes people will say, because he is my better half, I am obligated or responsible for saying nice things about his work. And he'll be the first to tell you it's not always nice. Most of the time it is. Oh gosh, and Chris is oh, look at that.
positive feedback for you. Look at that. I know that oftentimes people, like I said, think that I'm obligated to say this, but I'm not. And I'm more honest with him about his work than almost anyone. So this is what I can tell you, having watched his process and prepare for things and the ultimate. One of the things that made me fall in love in the first place was that he has such an incredible ability to effectuate emotion from an audience, whether it's his laugh or his smile, or whether it's his devilish demeanor. He has this way to awaken the senses. He is charismatic and creative and largely colorful on screen. It's not a wonder to me that he's been a lead actor on more than one occasion. He does wonderfully dramatically. He's even better in comedy, but most importantly, every part of his heart goes into every role that he does. I couldn't possibly admire someone's work more than his. And if you want to talk about an underrated actor, unfortunately, he's sitting right here. So it's my goal, with any luck at all, that you get an entire 50 states to see his work. I'd be happy. But the bottom line is, he is the real Hollywood right here. That's just my little 2 cents there. And I'm not just biased, but this true story.
Thank you, Steph.
So, having said that and all the mush now,
Other movies in the docket.
other movies are in the dockets.